Wahoo Wah and welcome. Congratulations on your admission to the University of Virginia, and thank you for joining us today for our virtual admitted student celebration. This event is brought to you by UVA Clubs in partnership with the Office of Admission. A couple of housekeeping items to begin. This session is being recorded and will be sent out to all registrants in a few days. If you have any questions throughout the discussion, type them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Our behind-the-scenes staff will be responding to your questions throughout the program. If you have specific admission questions, please visit the Office of Admission website. A link will be dropped in the chat now. Over the course of the next hour, you'll hear us refer to the word clubs in two different ways. There's a more traditional way, as in student activities, but you'll also hear about our UVA clubs, which are a global network of alumni, family, and friends in Virginia, across the country, and around the world. Our regional clubs offer many programs throughout the year that allow you to connect with who's wherever you live. We hope you take some time to visit our website to learn more about what your local club has going on. We'll drop a link in the chat for more information. I also want to let you know that many of our local clubs will be sponsoring in-person admitted student celebrations in the next few weeks, but stay tuned to hear more about that later. My name is Joshua Stewart, and I'm with the UVA's Office of Engagement, as well as a UVA alum and a proud Hullabaloo alum. On behalf of the UVA clubs, I'd like to offer a warm Wahoo welcome to our new Who's. Today's program will feature a discussion with our three panelists about their experiences at UVA. This discussion will be followed by a Q&A, answering some of the questions you submitted when you registered. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to our silent moderators from the Office of Admission, who are busy behind the scenes answering questions live as they come through the Q&A feature, again, at the bottom of your screen. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our special guests to join me. Panelists? Welcome, welcome. All right, so I'm just gonna call on each of you, professor style, and just give a quick little pitch: name, hometown, current city, major, and current occupation. I'll start with our current student, Ella.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Ella. I'm a current fourth year at UVA in the Batten School, majoring in public policy and leadership, and I'm originally from Thomasville, Georgia.
Thanks, Ella. Charity.
Hi, it's Charity. I'm originally from Kennesaw, Georgia. I'm currently living in the Atlanta area. I'm working as a consultant in that region.
And last but certainly not least, Mike.
Hi, everybody. Mike Melly here, class of 1992. I married another 1992 alum, and we have 4 children, 3 of which have attended the university. 1 is the current 3rd year. So my commentary will be completely unbiased tonight. I ran track and cross country for a year and a half while I was at UVA. I was an economics major. I spent 27 years in a finance career, which began with an internship at UVA. And I'm currently the alumni director for an independent school outside of Boston.
Great. Thank you, Mike. So let's start by going around the panel and having each of you describe your time at UVA, including what activities you were involved in, and what made your experience, UVA experience, meaningful. And I'll start with Charity.
Hello again. Okay, so as I said, I came from the Atlanta area. So when I moved to UVA, I didn't know a lot of other UVA grads. I actually got plugged in with other admitted students days through one of the events that you had mentioned earlier. So if you guys have one in your area, you should definitely attend. I went to UVA, made a lot of friends, probably visit the DC area once every other month. Love all the people I've met there. I was in the comm school studying finance and marketing with the track and business analytics. I also was in the comm cohort, was in Smart Women in Securities, FBLA, and I also did intramural sports with a lot of my friends. So that kind of gives an overview of my experience at UVA. Love all of my friends to this day. So thanks, Josh.
Yeah, Charity, that's a lot. You're involved in a lot of things. Mike, how about you?
So as I mentioned, I ran track for a year and a half, and it was a great experience. Made some incredible friendships there. But it is Division I, and you don't just hang around and hang around. A new crop of students come in, and there's competition on the team. I felt like I had accomplished a lot of personal goals, and I figured it was time to move on. And the best thing about that decision is that I was happy with the selection of UVA broadly, not just the track program. And anybody that's an athlete should be thinking about that, where you want to be, if things don't work out athletically. So I feel great about that decision. I experienced several different parts of the university, from the athletic, then over onto the Greek side of things. I was involved there. I look at the Greek experience as not necessarily a destination, but really a jumping off point. We can talk about it a little bit more later, but really it's a place where you can kind of shrink the university down and make it a launch point for things. But that was the bulk of my interactions at the university while I was there.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. And Ella, what is your experience like? What is making it meaningful? And how did you sort of navigate that starting from your first year?
Yeah, so similar to Charity, coming from out of state, I didn't really know anyone when I was coming to the university, and that was something I was really worried about coming in. But UVA makes it so easy to meet people and get plugged in no matter what you're interested in. So I definitely found my footing through a lot of clubs at UVA. I'm involved in the Women's Leadership Development Program, Undergraduate Women in Law. I'm involved in Best Buddies, and I'm also a student employee at the admission office as an intern. And I volunteer with my with the Batten School in their admissions program, working on current events and helping students who are looking to apply to that school. So that was really the biggest part that got me involved with seeking out those clubs and communities. A lot of people find their community and their people through clubs at UVA. So that was really meaningful to me. But also just the friends I've met here are incredible. I'm kind of getting into that like nostalgic, reminiscent fourth year vibe. But really, I've met some incredible people here that I do believe are going to be lifelong friends. And I'm so glad that they've made part of my UVA experience what it is.
Love that lifelong friendship. So I'm going to come back to you and Charity just to talk about that transition. You mentioned it a little bit when you talked about coming from out of state, but once you got on grounds, there are some key words at UVA. Grounds is one of them. We refer to the campus as grounds. So if you are familiar, that's one of our key words. But talk about that transition to grounds. You talked about the activities fair. We'll break that down a little bit later. But how was that transition? What was difficult? What was sort of enlightening? And what advice would you give your first year self?
First come to grounds, it's important to remember that everyone is new. So a lot of people are very receptive to making new friends. So like not to silo your mindset in this mentality that everyone is coming from a similar area. I don't think that they operate that way. Even the people that I know that came from similar high schools, they were broadening their friend groups. They were looking for new clubs. They were really expansive in their own mentalities. So I think making sure that you just keep an open mind and you're like welcome to everyone, and everyone is likely welcome to you as well. I started miking all of my friends, as one does, in their dorm room. Ask for anything that you can, whether that be a spare pajama, whether that be a screwdriver, anything that you need. Try to get it from someone else. Is a great opportunity to like talk to other people. When you're in the dining halls, try to be friendly, headphones off sometimes, smiling, welcoming other people to sit with you. My mode of operation was anyone and everyone until you find your people. And I think that helps the transition a lot. And things that were maybe more difficult, I think, is just like if it's not in your comfort zone to be continually reaching out to people and receptive, you could kind of isolate yourself. But I would encourage you to just continue to reach out to people, and people will reach out to you. So also it's a mentality of not just reaching out, but also saying yes. I think that just being consistent with your yeses and showing up is probably one of the ways I met some of my best friends today. So you never know who will be a stranger and who will become a best friend in 2 months. So that's my advice.
Love that, Ella.
Yeah, I really like what Charity said about like everyone is in the same boat of like making friends, even if they come from somewhere where they know people from high school, they still want to be in a new place and they're excited to do those new things. I actually had lunch today with one of my friends that I met in a dining hall my first or second week here. We were kind of talking about how funny that was, because I was definitely the type that would want to sit there with my headphones on, watch a little Netflix while I'm eating breakfast in the morning. But this girl walked up to me and she's, "Hi, can I sit with you?" And we're still friends now. So that was kind of a cool thing that you brought up there. But really here at UVA, I feel like the amount of effort that you put into making those relationships, whether they're with your friends, classmates, people in clubs, professors, it'll be reciprocated back to you. That can be kind of a hard thing to put yourself out there, but I think it's reassuring to know that if you're putting in the effort, you're asking people to hang out with you, you're showing up to office hours, you're looking to network, you're joining clubs, people are going to feed that energy back into you and be just as receptive as you are to them. So that's also my biggest piece of advice, is really to put yourself out there, as intimidating as it can be, because you really will, but that's how you're going to make the most of it, is by putting yourself out there, because people are going to just feed off of that energy and do so much more for you.
Love that. Both of y'all said amazing things. Love the lifelong friends and putting yourself out there, getting that reciprocity through your energy. I love that. Mike, I'm gonna turn it over to you to talk about, one, your experience, which I think is very important, but then two, talk about what you experience as a parent, right? What are the things you're hearing from your two previous children, now your current child, on how they went through, what things that they struggle with, and what advice would you give to the parents as well as the students?
Yeah, I mean, my experience itself is fairly dated, so I won't spend too much time on that. But really, as a parent, though, my honest advice would be, to the parents on the call, is to really let your sons and daughters kind of figure out a lot by themselves. They didn't get to UVA by accident. They're smart, they're energetic, they're ambitious, they're motivated. They got into this school because of those criteria, and they'll figure it out when they're there. So, trust me, when each one leaves, it's a little bit of a challenge. The house dynamic does change depending on your family situation. But I would really say that over time, and this does go back to my time and it's current today, I've checked it out with my son and daughters. If students make an outreach, they ask a question to a teacher, to an administrator, to a peer, it comes back more than halfway from the university. It is a big university, but if you make the effort, you initiate the contact, you go after an answer, you'll get a response, and a strong one, and a very, very positive one. So I know it's not the easiest thing to let your kids get off to college and all that sort of thing. But I would strongly encourage you to let them figure it out on their own, and they're very much up to the task. There's no question in my mind, and UVA will meet them more than halfway. So that would be my advice to parents as you're on this call, if you're on this call.
Love that. Thanks, Mike. Ella, as a student, you're still in the thick of things, and for you, definitely are in the reflective mindset as May is quickly approaching. But what has been your favorite academic experience or experiences? And talk a little bit about your professors and sort of how you maybe charted your path into Baton.
Yeah, so actually starting out at UVA, I had no idea that the Baton School existed, which could show my lack of poor research coming in, but could also show that that's how you have so much time to explore and figure out your paths and options at UVA. I took the prerequisite courses for the Baton School when I was in my second year, and then applied after that. And I really like how well they set you up for success when applying those upper divisional schools. They have a lot of office hours, they have clubs they recommend you getting into. So they don't just throw you to the wolves, they do kind of help you along that application process, which I found really helpful. But the other cool thing is that I have two minors. One is in the cultural arts and sciences. I'm a religious studies minor. And then I also have a minor in the commerce school and general business. So it's been really easy to navigate taking classes across different schools at UVA. But I've also taken classes in the ed school and the architecture school just because they're interesting. I was really afraid coming in that I'd be limited to just taking courses in my major, but UVA does a really great job of, spreading you out and making sure that you can take classes in what you're interested in. Probably my favorite class was actually in a department that I'm not even majoring in. It was in the English department. I took a class a couple summers ago as part of their tech-free education program where it was called Introduction to Book Editing and Publishing. That's not something that I'd ever want to do. I do not want to be an editor or a publisher, but we got to write our own book and actually go to the UVA Center for the Book and like use the printing presses and make our book that way. And the professor was actually a really great mentor for me in helping me with my writing. I had to do a lot of writing as a Batten student, mostly in the policy aspect, writing memos and policy proposals, but she really introduced me to the world of creative writing. And I actually had to do a creative writing assignment for a policy class this week, which I was a little astounded by, but I reached out to this professor who taught me a lot about creative writing, and she was there as a resource to help me, even though I had her class 2 summers ago. So it was kind of a really cool way to think about how supportive professors are, even if they're not in your field of interest, your department of interest, they're still there for you and they still value you as a student. So definitely that's another little unsolicited piece of advice, but take classes that are cool, even if they're not in your major or they're not going to help you career-wise, they're still going to be a benefit to you and you're still going to have fun with it.
Love that. And in Charity, what was your favorite academic experience and how was, again, your path through COM and how to get you where you are today?
Yeah, I guess as far as my path through comm, I think I had a lot of support on the front end because I was part of the commerce cohort. So they were facilitating a lot of my experience on the front end of going through the prerequisites as well as applying for comm. But once I was in comm, I think that is where my favorite academic experience lies. If you guys choose the commerce path, I'm a big McIntyre advocate. The connectivity that the McIntyre School has to both alumni and brands and businesses provides you an opportunity and a level of exposure that I haven't seen in a lot of other schools. So one of my favorite experience, or I guess I'll do two. One of them is in your first year in the comm school, which was my third year. You're in an integrated core experience where you take all of the concentrations and you basically do this entire project where you're aligned with a company. So mine was Hilton, and we were positioned to provide a brand solution. And then you present it to the Hilton executives at the end of the semester. I think that was a really unique experience and really still characterized a lot of my skill set today. I present to executives very frequently in my current job. And so having the opportunity to kind of break those walls down and limit that kind of fear at an early age allows me to be really successful in my career today. And then I think very similarly, I was in a brand strategy class where we presented a solution to Tabasco. So we actually got to meet the Tabasco CEO, present our solution to him. And that was a really cool experience because we are connected on LinkedIn, which will always help you. So those are kind of my favorite things about kind of my academic experience, but similar to Ella, I think I took a lot of sociology classes outside of my comm experience. And I would say that I learned a lot about just the way people are and are motivated. And I think it's very interesting to be able to have that level of exposure while not necessarily having to be in those specific schools or studies. And the professors are equally receptive to you as a student, despite them not being your major.
Yeah, I love that. There are a couple of classes I got to give, shout outs to. So there's one class that everybody raves about, and it's the Dracula class. It's been that way for quite some time. Stands to Panic, incredible teacher. But it's one of those classes that has a wait list for miles long. But if you get into it, I hear it's an amazing class. And then I was a music and psychology major, and one of my music classes was called Soundscapes, or the study of soundscapes. We got to just walk around grounds and sort of record sounds that we heard. That was our class. So when it came to homework and when it came to, maybe needing a little bit of decompression, that was the best class that I took. So that was fun. And then Mike, any classes that you heard from here from your kids?
Yeah, I would put in a plug for the psychology classes. I was an economics major, but the most interesting classes that I've used long term are a lot of the psychology, the human psychology classes, how we're wired and all that sort of thing was pretty instrumental in the way I viewed things. I would say of my children, probably the coolest experience came from my oldest daughter, who studied at UVA Valencia. She studied abroad, and that's an integrated, basically you are at UVA, only you're in Valencia, Spain, so it's not another school. She lived with a host family, was fluent heading in, but clearly came out much stronger on the other end. That opportunity for her was great. She became a Spanish major and international affairs, double major, I should say. And so I would put in a big plug for any of you who are considering studying abroad. It was a tremendously impactful experience for her.
Love that. Charity, we're going to turn it back to you. You brought up some things in your academic experience that prepared you for your sort of current line of work. So talk about how UVA sort of supported you during your time on grounds, whether that's through wellness, social opportunities, career prep. What was your experience with that?
Yeah, sure. So I think in terms of wellness, I know that the comm school has specific connections to different therapy and different therapists, which was very nice to have the accessibility directly within the comm school. And then I know that there is a broader experience on grounds. I can't really speak as much to it because I think I had the access to the comm school. And then in terms of like social engagement, everyone that you meet will be trying to get you to join their club or to have you try a new activity. I think that is the best way that you can be supported, especially as you're coming in as a new person, is knowing that like you do not have to do all of the lift work. There will be so many flyers, so many people passing things out, asking you to come to events. I think in that way, just make sure that you're utilizing UVA to its full extent, especially for other things. Like I know, Josh, you were in like a music program. That's not something I had a ton of exposure to. So like going to different arts experiences or different concerts. One of my best friends was a Silhouette. So we used to go to a lot of a cappella concerts. So I think just making sure that you also support your friends' endeavors, that's a great way to like meet new people, even outside of your interests, and you might find new interests. And I think academically supported, my professors were always available. Office hours were super intimate. They were, I would say that our finance professors handheld us through our projects. They were available all hours of the day. They were consistently ready to answer questions, and they were always in their offices. And a lot of them had snacks and coffee and food. So that always helps. And I think that your peers are also a huge support. Everyone is in this together, and UVA does operate on that family mentality. So I think having the accessibility to each other, making sure that you're asking if there's anything that someone can support you in, that is helpful as well. And I think in general, outside of the professors and the students, like the academic rigor, the programs are well designed where they are leading you to come to these conclusions on your own. So you're learning to develop a thought process or a perspective that allows you to be a better full circle thinker or come up with a solution on your own outside of just being too hard or just trying to test the material. They're genuinely trying to develop a skill set within you.
Awesome. Wow, y'all are super qualified to be on this panel. Let me tell you that much. Ella, how are you currently being supported? And sort of the same question as Charity just answered.
Yeah, there's so many different resources available for students at UVA, especially with academics and career preparation. Even though I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do career-wise after graduation, please don't ask me any questions about it. I have found a lot of support through both my school with Baton and the broader UVA Career Center. They have specific like career pathways that they can help you out with. So if you have specific career interests, whereas I want to do government and public service, you can meet with specific people who know a lot about that area of work and can help connect you to different resources that way. We also have something really cool, and I don't know if either Charity or Mike is a part of this, but the Virginia Alumni Network, where it's mentoring that you can do online with alums from UVA. I had to do it as part of a required class one time during my first year, but I've done it a few times since then. But you can connect with alums who are in your field of interest. Maybe they work somewhere you want to work eventually. Maybe they just say that they can help you with your resume or with job interview prep. That's a really cool way to network and also get that concrete help. In terms of academics, though, there's a lot of really cool resources out there as well. One of my favorites is our peer-led learning at UVA, or P2L. These are like small tutoring sessions that are led by upperclassmen students who previously got an A in the subject area. I went to P2L my first year when I took calculus. They really helped me out a lot. the student had taken calculus with my professor, so he kind of walked me through what the exams were going to be like, how the grading process was. And it was also a little bit less intimidating than going to office hours. It kind of bridged that gap when I was coming in as a first year, and they helped kind of prep me to go to office hours. By the end of the semester, I felt a lot more confident reaching out to my professor directly, but it was a really great resource. It helped get me through. And since I am in an upper divisional school, like Charity was here, they do a lot of specialized resources for their students. So Batten has an embedded therapist that students can see. And we also have a really good advising network for students that they'll help you connect to resources all across grounds. I meet with my advisor a lot. She's a really great person. She's really helped me a lot through my time at UVA, not only academically, but also just checking in on how I'm doing, setting me up with other resources around grounds. So definitely reach out to people. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because they really will be there for you and help walk you through.
Well, awesome. And then Mike, you're next. So we'd love to hear about, or I'd love to hear about, or they would like to hear about how UVA still supports you in your career and personal life.
Yeah, well, look, I think taking it on my own personal level, clearly, I've stayed extremely connected via the alumni network. I started my career in New York. I've been in Boston for quite a while. It was a great resource personally and professionally. But what I would kind of encourage, again, the parents on the call, whether or not you're an alum, you're very much a part of the UVA family when you join. And there's many of these UVA clubs. I know the UVA Club of Boston is very strong. And I want you to think about the fact that you are a member of this family. You can participate too. So any of those events, I would welcome you to try them out and to become a part of it. It's that type of a place. And I find that everywhere I've been, the UVA alumni group really sticks together very strong. The funniest story I heard, there's an economics professor, very famous one, named Kenneth Elsing at the university, who was there when I was there. He's still there now, I believe, if not maybe not retired yet, but he's still there. Okay, great. And I heard him speak once, and he said that UVA's got the greatest alumni network, because every law firm that he goes in to give expert testimony on, he goes into the law firm and he sits down, and when they're done discussing business, at every single meeting, the lawyer across the table says, "Hey, there's a UVA guy down the hall, and he never stops talking about UVA. You have to talk to him." So he said, no matter what law firm he goes in, there's always an alum there. And I think that just speaks to how the school stays with you for your life. It's a very quick connection being made across generations that I've been pretty lucky to take part in all these years.
Love that. And then Charity, being a recent grad, how has it been that UVA still supports you? And Mike talked about UVA clubs. We got introduced through a UVA clubs event, but how is that UVA network still supporting you in your career?
Yeah, I think especially being in the corporate America space, the UVA Alumni Network is something that I leverage pretty frequently, whether that be when I'm traveling into different cities. A lot of my friends were all still connected, or even outside of my friends, a lot of other people in the econ major or comm majors will grab drinks when we're out in different cities when we're doing consulting. So staying connected, even when you're after you graduate, is important, because you're going to a lot of different cities that you don't know, especially when you're a consultant and stuff, and using the UVA network to still be a sense of kind of like a familiarity or just a camaraderie with one another after school is not something I was expecting in my to be using my professional alumni network for, but it's something that I do use it frequently for. And then also in terms of, like, I think Mike was mentioning it as well, but networking is the way to get internships and to get jobs. And I think as we're all kind of transitioning and just kind of continuing throughout our career, I've used the UVA network a lot to get my current job, but also to just continue exploring other opportunities. A lot of times alumni will reach out to you to see if you're interested in switching. So having those opportunities and that exposure to the alumni network, especially when they're so expansive across all different industries, is extremely important. And it's something that you can continue to leverage throughout the years.
Hey, Josh, would you mind if I just followed up on Charity there?
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing for the young folks on the call, when you think about networking, it might sound very transactional. And there's an element of that to any level of networking. But I think that, you know, Ella and Charity and I and Josh, we've all had somewhat of a transformational experience at UVA. And that transformational experience that we're all a part of, we can sit down at, you know, at a table and have that connection. And that's something very different than just transacting a business deal. And it's something that you experience. It's something that you it was a part of you. And I think that's pretty foundational to the UVA experience. And you know, there's a lot of great schools out there, but I would give us a huge edge on that element, that transformational experience that you will have at UVA and will stay with you a lifetime. And I can run into somebody, you know, 25, 30 years, my elder or younger, whatever the right word is, and have that connection. I do think it's very, very real. So I just wanted to echo that, what Charity was getting at.
No, love that. And that's a perfect note to end on as now we move into our Q&A. So thank you for sharing those wonderful thoughts with us. I know people got a lot of good advice there. So thank you. So we're going to shift gears a little and answer some questions that came in during registration. We have so many great questions, and unfortunately, we won't have time to get to them all tonight. But our colleagues will drop some links in the chat about orientation, housing, and at the end of this presentation, we'll provide additional resources of other opportunities to connect with UVA and ask those questions. So our behind the scenes moderators are still answering your questions. We have quite a few, so thank you for putting them in the Q&A box. And thank you again for the silent moderators for the work that they're doing, responding to your questions throughout the program. So clubs and activities, I've seen it in the Q&A, but this also came in during registration. Were by far the most popular topic and are always a topic of interest in the pre-submitted questions. UVA has over 1,000 clubs on grounds that cover just about any interest you might have. So we'll drop a link in the chat for our student activities where you can find the list of current clubs and more information. All right, so Q&A. Panelists, are we ready? Perfect, all right. So as I mentioned, we talked about the 1,000+ clubs, and that'll soon reach 2,000 and 3,000, the more and more as UVA continues to go on. Ella, Charity, Mike, how did you choose the activities you participated in, and how do you balance school with those extracurricular activities? And Ella, go ahead and start.
Yeah, since we have the activities fair at the beginning of each semester where you can view all the clubs we have to offer, that's really the easiest way to find out about them. I knew coming in that I wanted to kind of have clubs that I did for like professional development, some for academic development, and then some just for like fun because I enjoyed them. So that's kind of like what I had in the back of my mind when going to all the different tables at the activities fair. It's definitely an overwhelming experience to go there and see the 1,000+ clubs we have here. You can kind of be shocked at the type of things that people are interested in, but they really do have a club for any type of thing that you think you would want to get into here. Probably the most impactful club though for me was the Undergraduate Women in Law program. We have a partnership with the Virginia Law Women at UVA Law. So each of us get partnered up with a member of that club who is a current law student, and they're kind of like a mentor to us. We do like coffee chats. They'll help us with like LSAT studying and just kind of like being a general person to go to for questions about anything law related. But a lot of clubs at UVA also do a lot of social activities. So we've gone on hikes before as a club. They had like a UVA does like run with gyms. So UVA Law did a run with UVA Undergrad Women in Law this weekend. I didn't go because I'm not a runner, but people had a lot of fun with it, so I hear. And we've also do law school touring trips every semester. So we toured this past fall, we went to North Carolina and went to like UNC and Duke and some of the law schools there. And we go in the spring to the DC area law schools. So it's just been a really cool experience to get to do all that and meet a lot of cool friends through it as well. Definitely, though, when it comes to balancing clubs, I think you have to be really intentional about it. Clubs tend to take up a lot more time in college than they do in high school. For that reason, students tend to do a lot fewer clubs in college. I'd say most students get involved in like, honestly, 3 to 5 clubs during their time here. But the ones they are involved in, they really go all in. They take leadership positions. They, help plan events. They attend all the events. So it is something you just have to be intentional about and make sure you kind of budget out your time for it so you're able to stay on track of things with your studies. But definitely I've made most of my really good friends through clubs at UVA. So just try to get involved in what you're interested in and don't be afraid to try something new because there are really anything you could dream of doing, you could do through a club here.
Yeah, Charity.
Yeah, I feel like Ella highlighted it really well. I think I just have a couple other things that I would say about clubs. Not all clubs have the same level of commitment. So maybe when you're at these activity fairs, that's a great time to be like, what do you guys expect from your first year clubs? Or like, for example, in Smart Women in Securities, I know they have you do a project for your first year, but then after that, the involvement or the level of involvement on a weekly basis decreases significantly. So make sure that when you're signing up for clubs too, you might be able to do like 2 clubs that require some level of advancement in terms of a project, and then do more clubs that are also kind of more attending or have like a smaller weekly commitment. And so just make sure that you stay like open-minded about clubs and you're asking kind of those questions. And then they, similar to what we've already echoed, everyone is very responsive. So a lot of them, I know when we were doing it, I think they sent the link for it. There's like an activities fair board, and you can see the email. If you email them and you ask questions, that's also another great way to get follow-up information. Some of them have a website and Instagram. All of those are going to be ways that can help kind of guide your way through the career. Not the career, sorry, the activities fair when you're there. So that's just all I would add.
And I'll chime in and say, sign up for as many as you desire to that sort of balance. You know, as Charity and Ella and Mike all alluded to, you know, your co-curricular activities are just as important as your academic activities. That's really where you make your friends. We talked about that transition into from high school. So really, when you hit that activities fair, you're be on the lawn. It's usually a beautiful day. It's usually a hot day. Just enjoy it and definitely do some things that you never would have imagined, because you might meet that lifelong friend that you might not have otherwise met. Mike, anything to add on sort of balancing extracurricular activities or getting involved on grounds?
So,
And I'll actually pitch it to you for speak a little bit about Greek life.
okay, sure. As I mentioned, I ran track for a year and a half. That was like largely a job, right? So I was very busy at that time, but then came out of that and got active in the fraternity that I had joined, but quite honestly, rarely showed up at. With regards to Greek life, I know there's a lot of questions about that. From my time to now, I think the university has made tremendous strides in terms of balancing that out. I think that there's a lot to do at UVA without doing Greek life, but without participating in Greek life. But from the standpoint of if you decide to choose Greek life, I think it's a really worthwhile opportunity. It does shrink the university down a little bit for you. Again, I don't think it should be a destination. It's not something that's your end goal is to go to that fraternity or sorority. It's really a place to meet and get to know people better, learn more about what they're doing, and then kind of branch out and go from there. So it's a great home base. Quite honestly, even just running these fraternities and sororities, think about the concept of getting 60 to 120 of your peers on the same page to do just about anything. They're also running a kitchen budget. They're keeping the house maintained. They're planning social events. There's charitable events. I call them a lot of microcosms for leadership. It's the way I look at it. And a lot of the things that you do and participate in at the fraternity level are skills and qualifications that you'll use kind of in the rest of your life. Admittedly, a lot of it is in the name of fun, and there's nothing wrong with having a good time. But that's kind of where that fit in. And all 3 of my children are involved in Greek life, but it's kind of, for each of them, it was whether it was their primary, secondary, or tertiary, it was not a rank order top thing that they did. It was in the list of things they did. It wasn't the thing that they did. And I think that's the way you should be thinking about it. If you're completely ambitious about joining a fraternity or sorority, great. But it's one of many things. If you're not so much, it's worth exploring and thinking about it in that context.
Love that. Thank you, Mike. And just to note that Rush is in the spring, not the fall. So important to note that. Now we have had a lot of questions come into the Q&A, as well as pre-submitted about internships, research opportunities. Mike touched on the study abroad. I'll throw it to Ella and Charity. Charity, I'll go to you first. Talk about your internship research or research opportunities that you had at UVA.
Sure, yeah. So as far as research, I worked under a professor actually in the engineering school when I was a second year, I believe, helping and assisting in his research. And I would say the best way to get into research opportunities is going to be the office hours and the Take the Professor to Lunch program. You're going to want to get that intimate connection time with the professors. A lot of them are working on research. A lot of professors at UVA are research professors, so they are always kind of looking for someone. So kind of getting more connected and getting to know them as a person will allow you to understand their interests and what you could maybe provide or help them on. It's a great way to kind of get in the door in that direction. On the internship direction, I think using LinkedIn and then the career centers are going to be great opportunities for that. A lot of career centers will post internships that are specifically recruiting from UVA. Those are going to be your first. You should definitely apply for those first, get connected with people there. And then I think that we've already talked about the alumni network. I'm only 2 years out, and every single person I know is still connected to younger UVA grads. We're rewriting resumes, helping people every day. And so I think reaching out to the newer grads who are working at these companies that you want to work with, a lot of them will know the recruiter, the hiring manager, or they'll know the kind of the ins and outs of the process or how to study for some of these internship roles. They have all the ins and outs, and they are the person that can tell you all the ins and outs. So you should reach out to them. A lot of them are willing and open. I would just say, do it very friendly. Like Mike said, everyone has something to connect with. I think the thing I talk most about with adults who graduated from UVA is my first year dorm. So you will be qualified to have these conversations. Just reach out and say, hey, I noticed that you went to UVA. I want to talk to you. I was wondering if I have 15 minutes on your schedule. And then anyone has 15 minutes to call. So just reach out and say something. And that's a great way to kind of get plugged in with internships. And then the Career Center in both the arts or just the overall UVA Career Center and the comm one are both super willing and always accessible. And they'll review resumes and everything.
Yeah. Ella, anything to add there?
Yeah, I'll say while I didn't do research at UVA, I have done an internship almost every semester I've been here. My first summer after being here at UVA, I did an internship back in my hometown. And while UVA didn't help me source it directly, they were there to help me write my resume and prep for my interview. And they also were able to help me find like stipend funds for that too, which is a really important thing if you're into public service like I am. There are a lot of lower paying internships, but UVA has a lot of support to help you still get funding so you can survive and live during that time. But one thing that I did that was really cool with UVA was their internship placement program, where they place you with an internship in the Charlottesville community. And you also take a class alongside it that helps connect what you're doing in your internship to your courses and also what you want to do after graduation. So they placed me with the Department of Juvenile Justice in Charlottesville, and I got to work directly with like juveniles who were in the justice system. I would go on visits, attend court, that sort of thing. So it was a really cool experience, and I definitely felt a lot of support through that. I know you can get started with that as early as your second semester, first year. So I definitely recommend doing that if you come to UVA. I've had friends who've done their global internship placement program as well, and they'll place you in cities across the world.
Ella, it is a small world. I did that same program in 2018. That was one of my favorite things that I did working for the Charlottesville Juvenile Justice Department. Oh my goodness, that is wild. So yeah. Now let's move on and talk about some fun things. And maybe some, life, campus grounds life things. So describe UVA campus life in 3 words. Give you time to think about it. All right, Mike, going to you.
I kind of failed this question on my original job interviews when I was right out of college, so I'm not good at these 3 adjectives questions. But if I could say about 3 words for me about UVA is work-life balance. I think we get that really right. Very ambitious, very competitive, motivated group of people down there. But recognizing that personal relationships matter, supporting each other. I don't think it's the type of place where for me to win, you have to lose. I think we can both win. I've heard that again. That was my experience at the school when I was there, and I've heard that reiterated from my children, that atmosphere still exists. Charity and Ella strike me as the same type of folks, and I see them nodding their head. I think that's the kind of group that comes to UVA. They want to win together and enjoy each other's company. Just about every organization has a social element. It kind of makes me laugh when I hear of the different groups having their various semi-formals or gatherings and this sort of thing. So work-life balance, I'll call it that for 3 words.
Love it. Charity.
Josh, you're putting us on the spot with the quick thinking, but I think maybe to go off of Mike, one of the words I would use to describe the overall experience is familial. I think very similar to what he's saying, whether that be an academic experience, whether that be a social experience, they all come around the same kind of like principles, which is like, we're going to work really hard together. We're here to support one another. And we're also here to have a really good time together. So you'll probably find that at any club you join, whether that be academic or social. You could be in a social club and that might be where you find your tutor, or you could be in an academic club and that's where you're going to come from. So it really just kind of ranges of around these things. But I think UVA operates under a family kind of mindset, which is kind of like why when we are 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years out from this experience, we still kind of are connected in that way of like, in the same way you may not have talked to your grandma in 2 months, get on that. She's still your grandma. So like, there's always someone to like call and reach out to, and everyone feels the same level of like connectivity to the school and the people.
Love that. And shout out to the grandmas. Ella.
Yeah, 3 is hard, but one that I think I definitely think of a lot is community, kind of similar to what Charity said. Not only when you're here at UVA do you have that big community, but I can tell that it follows with you as long as you're alive. You can have these people that you can go back to. So everyone really does look out for each other. They're there for you. You're never alone, no matter if it's speaking for academics, for clubs, for your friends. There's always going to be that community that follows you.
Love that. And now we're going to go to one of the questions that actually came in through the Q&A. How does Charlottesville contribute to the UVA experience? Give you a couple seconds to think about that, and whoever wants to tackle that, just feel free to unmute in 3, 2, 1.
So I love Charlottesville. I come from a really small town, smaller than like the population of UVA undergrads, which is crazy. So Charlottesville, I think, was a really good transition for me from being from a small town. It's the kind of place where there's everything you need here. There's a lot of fun things to do, but it's not an overwhelmingly large city. It's still easy to navigate. And I like that it's very easy to see people, when you're out and about doing things. You run into professors, people you've met from volunteering when you're at the grocery store, at an event on the downtown mall. So I like that community I talked about with UVA extends to Charlottesville as well. And there's so many different ways to get plugged in and get connected to people who live here. We're very much not like an isolated college. We're very integrated into the community. Students will, like I did, do an internship in Charlottesville. They'll do volunteering. They'll go out and do all the fun things there are to offer. So definitely it plays a big role in your experience here.
Mike, I saw you on mute next. Oh, go ahead, Charity.
Mike, did you want to go? Okay, I'll go. I was just going to say, like, I am from a little bit closer to Atlanta, and I think I was like originally concerned that Charlottesville was maybe going to be too small, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think that there are a lot of people and there's a lot of enriching activities. I think that because it is Charlottesville, there's actually a couple different things that maybe kind of broaden the experience or the exposure. There's a lot of cool wineries. There's a lot of historic art. There's a lot of like outdoor activities. I myself am not an outdoor enthusiast, so I can't say too much, but there's a lot of good hikes and things in the area. There's also a lot of different food and things like that. And I think they did a really good job of preserving kind of different cultures and experiences on the corner, where it's not all just chain food or just everything is a little niche. Everything about UVA has little niches, which kind of makes the experience even more exciting to be in the city, because it feels like it's the only place you can have that experience. So
love it. Mike.
Yeah, I think you both said it really well. The only thing that I would add would be to get a job in Charlottesville. And that could be waiting tables. I worked at Ragged Mountain Running Shop on Elliowood Ave, and become a part of the community. There's overlap between the town, the city of Charlottesville and the university. And one of the best ways to really figure that out is to be part of that is to work in the community. And so jobs are, there's tons of restaurants, tons of places to get a job, and that's where there's a lot of overlap. You're absolutely right about the hikes and the runs. I was down there recently, and I can't run on the hills anymore. I found out. I'm now a walker in Charlottesville, but awesome town, and you can get very much integrated into it if you make an effort at it.
Yeah, I worked at Menser's, so that was a great time working there. That's another off-brand UVA store on the corner, and has been around for a very long time, since really the 70s. And so great place to work at. Charity, one question for, I guess, for both of you, both of you can answer this. What made you choose UVA as an out-of-state school versus the in-state schools that maybe you were looking at? Charity, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll make mine quick. I was pursuing the comm school when I came, but also outside of that, I was really looking for something that broadened past my experiences. I think I do still have a lot of friends from my high school, but I had felt like I was maybe outgrowing that bubble. And I think I was almost afraid that when I chose another school, I wasn't going to necessarily feel fulfilled. But if you're on that fence, make the step. Like, that's the only thing I can encourage you to do, is go and try, because I have never felt more fulfilled than the friends I've met at UVA, and I'm still friends with them to this day. We're going to be in each other's weddings. So I think as we're entering this new season of life, I think that like coming and meeting the people, once I did, what is it? Days on the Lawn. I think that's what it's called. Once I got to meet the people and see the genuineness and authenticity to the statements that I was like, not just hearing, but also getting to see and experience, I was like, this is the place I want to explore and grow, and find and meet new people. So that's how I made my choice.
Ella, anything to add there?
Yeah, similarly, I just kind of wanted to get out of my comfort zone. It was really important to me to move somewhere new and try something different for college. But also when I was looking at colleges, it was during COVID, so I couldn't really tour, but I did come to UVA for a weekend in the spring of 2021 when there were like very little students on grounds. Charity was at home during that time. But even then, the students that were here seemed very happy, and like that was something that was rare to see during that time in the country. So I really loved seeing that even though there were difficult circumstances going on, the students were still outside doing what they can. They were like having picnics on the lawn, wearing their little masks. So I really enjoyed that even during a difficult time, people seemed to really love being where they were.
Awesome. And now we got to do this lightning speed. But our final question for the evening: what is your one piece of advice that you would give to incoming first years and their families? Ella, you go first.
Kind of to echo what I've said a little bit earlier, is to just know that you're not alone in feeling like it's hard to make friends. Everyone out there wants to make friends. That's something that people come to college to do, is to make friends. So just put yourself out there, because people are going to definitely reciprocate what you put in, not only for friends, but also with, your classes and professors and all of that.
Charity?
Mike touched on earlier, but the environment was created for you to explore safely and capitalize on it as such. I think for me, that would just mean like you as a student reaching out, trying new opportunities, new people, professors, trying to do as many of the UVA things as possible. If you can get your hands on a fourth year checkoff list, that would be a great way to start your first year. There's a lot of fun things on there that are kind of just like challenge and poke you, or real good ways or jumping pads to try new things. And I think from the parent side of things, I definitely felt empowered as a student. For my parents, they were supportive in terms of whenever I needed them, but they weren't necessarily like hounding me in any way. And that really allowed me to grow. And everyone was there to help me along the way. I did holidays with families. I got stranded flying one time and there was snow. I'm from Atlanta. That's not a real thing by us. And one of my friends' families picked me up from a neighboring airport. So just know that not only are you in this, but everyone else is in this, and the family extends outside of just the people you're meeting, but their families and their alumni and their networks, and everyone treats it as such.
And Mike?
So I would tell you to take an incredible chance on coming to the university. I really do believe that UVA is one of the great and extremely unique American universities that you could experience. I often think of the fact, what I often say is, New York City will always be there. Chicago will always be there. San Fran, Atlanta, those cities will always be there. You're not always going to have an opportunity to live and experience an atmosphere like UVA in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so I would tell you to take that chance to do everything that Ella and Charity have said, and do it at UVA. I think it's a truly important place in the pantheon of American universities, and I think it will stay with you for the rest of your life that way.
I know everyone will benefit from your experience and expertise you just shared. You're free to leave the webinar. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your evening. So before we close today's program, I'd like to direct you to more opportunities to connect with the Wahoos in your region. As we mentioned earlier, many of our regional UVA clubs are sponsoring local in-person admitted student celebrations in the coming weeks. These will be held April 12th through the 27th and are great opportunities for you to meet new Who's in your area, connect with other admitted students, and learn more about your UVA experience. You may have already received an email inviting you to one of these events, but you can also see the link in the chat or scan that QR code on the screen to learn more. The Office of Admission also offers some great opportunities for you to connect with UVA as you make your decision. Check your UVA My Portal to find resources such as Days on the Lawn or admitted student tours. Or if you're unable to travel this spring, please check out the virtual student experience. That is all the time we have for you today. And my one piece of advice is to chart your own path. UVA makes that very easy and very accessible to all students. So chart your own path, wahoo wah, and congratulations. Thanks for joining us. Go Who's.